for every organization, for every employee that works for you, there's only 3 environments that shape every employee experience for every employee around the world. In fact, if there's one thing that you remember from anything that I say, I hope it's this. All of the experiences for your people are shaped by 3 environments that you can control: culture, technology, and physical space. How employees feel, the tools and resources they have access to, and the spaces in which they work. What about the actual work itself? Where does that fit? A lot of the times people say, oh, we need to give our employees challenging work. No, you don't. What I find starts to happen is that we start to take work and we start to complicate it. And we throw problems and roadblocks and hurdles in front of employees to make it challenging. That's not effective. Now think about this for a minute. Think about who actually controls the work. Now, think about your careers for a second. Many of you picked the colleges that you went to. You picked what you wanted to study in those colleges. You picked the organizations that you applied for. And you picked the role inside of the organization that you applied for. So who controls the work? You do. You decide the work that you're going to do. If you're in HR, guess what you're going to be doing? HR stuff. If you're in sales, you're going to be closing deals. If you're in customer service, you're going to be helping customers. You control the work. The organization only controls the environments in which the work gets done. I'm sure you've been in a situation at some point during the course of your career where you didn't like your job. And so you quit your job and you go work for another company. And the other company that you work for is usually in the same geographic location, same company size, same industry, and in fact, you're doing the same work. But now, for some reason, you love your job. So what changed? Why do you love your job now? It's not because of the work, right? The work is the same. It's because of the environments in which the work gets done. It's because of how you feel doing that job. It's because of the tools and resources you have access to do that job. And it's because of the spaces in which you work when you are doing that job. So 3 environments shape all employee experiences for every employee, every company around the world. Let's start off with the first one, physical space. Physical space is exactly what it sounds like. It's the art that hangs on the walls. It's the cubicles that you might sit in. It's the dogs that might be running down the halls. All of these things are a part of the physical space. It's what you can see and touch and taste and breathe in. All of that is physical space. And for a long time, we always assumed that physical space was just, a roof over your head. You just need walls. Physical space is just, a place to work. But now what we're starting to see, what a lot of research tells us, is that physical space acts as a symbol of your company in the eyes of your employees. It's what represents your organization. It's what helps connect an employee's sense of purpose and meaning to the organization. This is why space is so important. You spend almost as much time at your workspace as you do at your home space. And you know that when you show up to your house impacts how you feel. And when you show up to work for another 8 to 10 hours, that space too will impact how you feel. There's a simple test you can use to decide if you work for an organization that has a great space. Write down all of your values on a piece of paper. So all of your company values, write them down on a piece of paper. And these might be things like trust, collaboration, fun, transparency, all of these values. Write them down and then walk around your company and see, do these values come to life? Do you see these things happening? Do you see trust? Do you see collaboration? Do you see honesty? Do you see having fun? Do you see innovation? If you can't see those things with your eyes, then your values are useless, at least in the eyes of your employees. Because employees need to see the values physically manifested in the spaces in which employees work. I know there's a lot of debate when it comes to space between open spaces and closed spaces. In fact, I'm sure many of you are deciding on this internally. But what we find is that the leading companies around the world, they don't just have open spaces or closed spaces. They have a variety of spaces. There is a company in the United Kingdom called Leesman, and they do research on how employees work. And they found that during the course of a typical day, an employee can perform 21 different types of activities. 21! How can you force an employee to work in one space while they do 21 different things?
Do you want to hear something really crazy? 96% of the people who watch videos on this channel are not subscribed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll literally take you 1 second, and you'll get notified when more videos just like this one are available. Now, let's get back to the content.
Imagine for a minute you have a house, and the house has one room, and everything that you do needs to be done in that one room. You sleep there, you eat there, you entertain there, you watch TV there. You're not going to want to buy that kind of a house. Why would you want to work for that kind of a company? Doesn't make any sense. So instead, focus on creating multiple workspace options for your employees so that they can decide the environments in which they want to work. That's what employees care about most. The physical space, again, is a symbol. It's an artifact that represents your company. Think of your favorite superhero. Wonder Woman, Batman, Spider-Man, all of these different superheroes. They all have logos that represent who they are. Yours is your space. What does the space represent about your company? Physical space is 30% of the overall employee experience. 30%. The next environment that we have is technology. Technology is the devices, the hardware, the software, the apps, all of these things that you use to get your jobs done. It's the central nervous system of the company. In fact, every company today is a technology company. This is how employees work. And it's very important to make sure that we have the right technologies in place. I remember last year, or around a year and a half ago, I went to go speak to a large bank in Europe. And I gave a talk to their executive team, and after my talk, I had the opportunity to meet with a lot of their employees one-on-one. And I interviewed these employees, and they all told me the same thing. They said, "We love our space. It's beautiful. We're next to the lake. It's gorgeous. We have marble everywhere. It's amazing. We love our people. They take care of you. They help you. But we're all looking for a new job." And I thought, why would you look for a new job? It was a technology problem. Think about it. A lot of the concepts when we talk about the future of work are powered by technology. Flexible work, real-time recognition and feedback, right? All of these things are not possible without technology. So when technology inside of your company breaks down, so does all of the human aspects around technology. Trust breaks down, communication breaks down, collaboration breaks down. And when all of that starts to happen, it doesn't matter how great of a culture it is. It doesn't matter how beautiful your space is. Your employees are going to check out. They're going to start resenting you. It's going to be hard for them to work, and they will look elsewhere. Technology is 30% of the overall employee experience. Now, of course, I can't talk about technology without mentioning AI and automation. Right? There's a lot of debate, there's a lot of concern around artificial intelligence and the impact that it's going to have on jobs. And there are a couple of things that I find very fascinating in this conversation. The first is that whenever we talk about technology, we assume that technology is a thing that's coming to take over the world. But we forget that technology is a tool, and we control that tool. So we have a choice in how we use technology. And we can choose to use technology to replace workers, or we can choose to use technology to augment workers. Right? It's a choice that we ultimately have to make. Technology isn't a thing, it's a tool, and we control it. And a lot of people always say jobs are going to be lost. But I hate that phrase, because jobs don't get lost. Right? Jobs are not a set of keys that you just put down somewhere and then you say, oops, I lost my job. Jobs get taken. Right? Jobs get taken from you. And when it comes to artificial intelligence, I think jobs can be taken in two ways. The first way that a job will be taken is if a company decides that it wants to take it. The executives come together, the board comes together, and they say, we want to use technology to replace people inside of our company. We want to get rid of thousands of people, and we want to use technology instead. We don't care about them. We don't need them. Humans suck. Bring in the robots. That's the first way that a job will get automated, is if a company consciously, purposely makes that choice. Thankfully, I think a lot of what we've been seeing is the exact opposite. We see organizations like Accenture that automated 10,000 jobs a year and a half ago, but they didn't lose a single person because they upskilled all of their employees. They automated 10,000 jobs in finance. And these employees were what we would consider number crunchers. These employees would put together numbers and they would present those numbers to their clients. But we don't need them to do that anymore. We have AI, we have bots that can do that. So Accenture said, look, we don't need you to do that anymore. Instead, what we want you to do is to be a strategic advisor to our clients. We're going to teach you how to advise them, how to make good decisions based on the data that AI will produce. Look at a company like McDonald's. They're implementing kiosks all over their stores, all over the world. So now when you show up to a McDonald's, you can order without even having to talk to a human. You can just put something in on an iPad, get your food. And I interviewed their chief people officer, and I said, David, a lot of people are very concerned that you're going to be replacing a lot of jobs. Is that what's happening? And he said, no. We're keeping our headcount the same, and in fact, in some of our stores, we're increasing our headcount. And I said, how are you doing that? And he said, well, we're changing our business model. We're becoming more of a service restaurant. We're going to bring you your food. We're going to ask you how your day is going. We're going to create an experience for you that goes beyond just convenience. And we see stories like this all the time. Amazon automated probably more jobs than any other company. Tens of thousands of jobs they've automated. They've created hundreds of thousands of new ones by exploring new models, new business opportunities. So thankfully, we see companies that are deciding, they're making the choice to augment humans, not replace them. The second way I think that you're going to lose, or you can lose your job, depends on you as an individual. If you as an individual just watch as the world changes, you'll lose your job. AI will take your job. You have to become a perpetual learner. You have to learn how to learn. You need to be able to apply those things frequently. You need to be able to do it quickly. Right? That's what a perpetual learner is. That's what a perpetual learner does. But if you just stand there and you wait for schools to teach you everything you need to be successful, for your company to teach you everything you need to know to be successful, you're in trouble. You will be out of a job. It's going to take some of your own time. It might even take some of your own resources to look out for yourself. Right? You need to future-proof yourself. You can't rely on companies, you can't rely on educational institutions to teach you everything you need to know to be successful. So those are the two ways that I think jobs will be automated, right? Two potential ways that we can lose jobs. Companies will decide to take it, and if we just become passive, if we just watch and act like we're helpless. I think those are two ways that we're going to automate a lot of jobs. So again, technology, 30% of the employee's overall experience. The central nervous system of the company, It's what allows us to actually work. The third environment is corporate culture. Corporate culture is 40% of an employee's overall experience. Now, unlike the other two, corporate culture isn't one that you can really see or touch or taste. Corporate culture is the one that you feel. Right? Corporate culture is the one that you feel. And this is always the hardest one for organizations to figure out. How do we focus on the feeling stuff? It's easy to build a space. It's easy to give people tools, but how do we make them feel good? How do we make them feel like they want to work for us? There are a lot of different ways that we use to define what corporate culture is. My favorite way to explain corporate culture is it's the side effects of working for your company. The side effects of working for your company. What does that mean? I'm sure this has happened to you at some point, but you're watching a show on TV, and in the middle of a show, you see a commercial for a prescription drug. And the commercial is almost over, and then they start to talk about the side effects of the drug. And they say, you can take this drug, side effects include nausea, weight gain, hair loss, skin discoloration, bleeding from the eyes, some cases death. And whenever I see that, I think, who is going to take that drug that has all these terrible side effects? But consider that most people in the world work for organizations that have those exact same side effects. Most people work for organizations where from prolonged exposure, you gain weight, you lose your hair, you argue with your spouse, bleeding from the eyes. We've all been to those meetings. And in some cases, death. So why is it that we're not willing to take the prescription drug, yet we're willing to subject ourselves to work for that kind of an organization day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year? It doesn't make any sense. As a fun experiment, one of the things that I like to do when I interview executives is I say, if I could put the side effects of what it was like to work for your company, if I could put those side effects into a little pill right now and give you that pill to swallow, would you swallow it? And almost every executive always says, nope. So how can you expect other people to swallow that pill if you yourself don't want to be the first one to swallow that pill? Doesn't make any sense. Now, by the way, the side effects of working for your company can be good. They don't have to be bad. Side effects of working for your company can also be growth and learning and development and passion and purpose. They don't need to be bad. But ask yourselves, what are the side effects of working for your company? I was always a terrible, terrible student. In high school, I was terrible. Community college, I got really bad grades. And then finally, I went to university. And I studied really hard, and I got good grades. I graduated with honors, I double majored in economics and psychology, and I was very, very excited to join the business world. In my first job out of college, I went to go work for a company in Los Angeles. If you've ever been to Los Angeles, you know that the traffic is terrible. And it took me an hour and a half to get to work, and an hour and a half to get back from work. So 3 hours a day, 15 hours a week. But I took this job because when I interviewed there, they told me a compelling story. They told me a wonderful story of what it was like to work there, and I believed it. So I took the job. And then a couple of months in, I'm doing data entry, cold calling, I'm making PowerPoint presentations. And one day, the CEO comes out of his beautiful office, and he says, Jacob, I got a really important project for you. Come over here. And I got very excited. And I thought, this is it. Something good's going to happen. We're going to do something meaningful. I'm not going to just be doing cold calling. And he calls me over, and he puts his hand in his pocket, and he takes out his wallet. And he gives me a $10 bill, slaps a $10 bill in my hand. And he says, I'm late for a meeting. I need you to go to Starbucks get me a cup of coffee. And get a coffee for yourself, too. You're so generous, thank you. And my initial thought was like, are you out of your mind? This is why I worked so hard in college, is to get you a cup of coffee. You idiot, get your own cup of coffee. That's what I thought on the inside. On the outside, I said, of course, I would love to get you that cup of coffee. That's why I took this job, right? To get you. And that was one of the last jobs I've ever had working for anybody else. Ever since then, I've been really passionate and interested in this concept of the future of work, employee experience, leadership. How do we build organizations that don't suck? And that's what I've been doing for the last decade. Now, contrast this to a story that's oftentimes told about former President Kennedy when he went to go visit the NASA Space Center. And the story goes that he's doing a tour of the NASA Space Center, and in the middle of the tour, he sees a man walking down the hall with a broom and a bucket. And he stops the tour, and he goes over to the man, and he says, "Hi, I'm President Kennedy. What do you do here?" And the man says, "I helped put a man on the moon." Right? He didn't say, "I restock paper towels, I sweep the bathroom floors." He said, "I helped put a man on the moon." That's a very different type of corporate culture. Right? How you feel makes a big, big difference. Corporate culture, again, is 40% of the overall employee experience. So these are the three environments that you can shape. These are the three environments that you can control. Now, culture, remember, culture is something that we learn. And you learn culture as an employee by what other people do. And other people do things because they learn it from what the leaders do, from what the managers do, from what the executives do. So you need to lead by example. You have to lead by example. So this is the employee experience equation: culture, technology, and physical space.